Hey guys, tonight we're not going back to a time of war, not building pyramids. We're just sitting and writing. A lot. Endlessly. Just you, a reed pen, and a stack of papyrus looking at you with 3,000 years of responsibility. Tonight you will live one day quite literally as a scribe. Sounds fancy, right? Nope. This is not the kind of secretary with power in historical dramas. This is you, the person the entire kingdom entrusts with one mission: record everything. But don't make mistakes. And don't breathe too hard during the ritual. You think you just need to write fast and you're done. Nope. You have to understand. Hieroglyphics distinguish between sun god and a god that looks like the sun, but is actually an imaginary penguin. You have to sit under 107-degree heat, jotting down Pharaoh's 42-minute speech, a man who never uses punctuation. Just one wrong stroke, and you turn the blessing, peace and prosperity into dying river fish. And the gods don't like being misunderstood. So before we begin this journey, please like this video unless you're okay with Thoth hacking into your dream journal. And comment, where are you listening from? What time is it where you are? Now then, dim the lights. Let the fan hum like the desert breeze far away. And imagine, you just opened your eyes. Your forehead throbs slightly, because a scroll of papyrus just fell from the shelf of the gods. Welcome to a day in the life of a scribe in ancient Egypt. Good luck surviving. You wake up, not in a cool room, no silk blankets, and definitely no morning coffee. You wake up on a straw mat tilted into a mud brick wall, next to an empty water jar and a cat breathing in your face. You are an ancient Egyptian, but not a pharaoh, not a priest, not a noble, and definitely not someone painted on the temple walls. You are a scribe, the writer, the person who keeps writing without end. In ancient Egyptian society, where over 90% of the population is illiterate, you are one of the few with the privilege to read, write, and know exactly when to bow your head when asked to recopy a 38-line essay because you forgot one punctuation mark halfway through. You step outside your house, let's call it a house really. It's a shared room with 3 co-workers, 4 rat-bitten scrolls, and 1 black cat named Miu II. You wrap yourself in a white loincloth, once truly white. Now it's got a few ink stains, a few cat paw prints, and 1 unidentifiable mark from yesterday. You wrap it around Sai and pull out the reed pen hidden in a wall crack. Not because it's precious, but because someone accidentally sat on another one yesterday. Today is a big day. You have to write down the prophecy of the high priest, transcribe the incense offering ritual for the god Anubis, and most importantly record Pharaoh's dream in which he saw a singing duck and the tail of Seth shaking to the beat. You glance at the blazing sun across the Nile. The wind brushes the thatched roof. A lone papyrus scroll rolls toward your feet, as if reminding you no one else is writing for you today. You bend down and pick it up. Your hand is now used to ink resin. Your eyes still want to go back to sleep, but you can't. Thoth may be watching, and in Egypt, even dreams must be written in proper format. Welcome. You are the scribe of Egypt, and the whole world is waiting for your writing to remember what day it is, which god is being worshipped, and who cursed whom at the morning ceremony. Take a deep breath. Place your hand on the stone table. The writing begins here. You've been awake for less than 12 minutes. Your forehead still bears the mark from the papyrus scroll of Pharaoh's dream that fell down early this morning. And now you're already at work, introducing your office. An open space, very open. Open to the point of having no walls, no doors, no privacy, and occasionally a clump of goat dung drifting past your line of sight. The so-called workroom is really just a corner of the temple courtyard right next to the hay storage and 2 goats honored as sacred mascots of the god Khnum. They don't know that. They just know to chew your papyrus when your back is turned. Your desk. You don't have a chair. You sit on a flat stone hot as if freshly pulled from a brick kiln. A desk. It's a wooden plank propped up on 2 clay pots. On top of it, a wooden tray with black and red ink. Red for writing the names of gods. Black for writing things not worthy of naming gods. A set of pens made from reed stalks, the kind that snap when you write too fast or too tired, and a jar of ritual water. But you're pretty sure it still contains dead flies from last week's offering. You sit down. Your bones hit the stone with a clunk. The work environment. The air smells like something hard to describe. There's incense smoke. There's hay. There's a bit of ash from the cremation ritual this morning. And a lot of goat. To your left, a goat is chewing cud. To your right stands a statue of the god Anubis 4 times taller than you, staring at you as if it's proofreading for typos. In the distance is the public well, where elderly women are telling each other their dreams. Any dream strange enough gets sent to you for transcription and interpretation. One time you had to write down, "I saw a hippo belly dancing on the head of God Ra." The work begins. You take out a fresh papyrus scroll, roll it out. Dust flies up and makes you sneeze, but you have to sneeze quietly, because the priest hates noises during work hours. He once scolded a co-worker for swallowing too loudly. You dip your reed pen into the ink. First stroke smooth. Second stroke goes off because the reed went limp without warning. You fix it, and accidentally write the name of a dead prince wrong. You stop. Look to the sky. Oh, Thoth, please forgive me. Work hours, with no breaks. You begin transcribing the teachings of a high priest. Whoever spills ink on the divine offering scroll shall be reborn as someone who scrapes tongues of dried fish in their next life. You write while a cockroach flies past. You blow dust off while guarding against sunlight drying your ink too fast. Time passes like it doesn't. You look at the sun still in the same place. You look at the ink drying though you just dipped it. Special event. Goat bites your scroll. The goat next to you named Sacred Spirit. The fur suddenly reaches over and starts chewing the corner of the scroll you're working on. You scream silently, because you're not allowed to scream. You snatch the scroll back. The missing part is the word Ra. So instead of writing teachings of the god Ra, now you have teachings of the god. Roughly translated, teachings of the god who cannot be named. You wonder, did God Ra see that? And if he did, would he understand the situation? The sun shifts a little. Finally, you rinse your pen in the jar now, greyish green, smelling like burnt cake gone wrong. You gather the written scrolls, carefully avoiding the goat's line of sight. Then you take a breath. Prepare for the next shift. Recording Pharaoh's dream about a cat who knows philosophy. But that's a story for the next chapter. You're sitting upright, sitting cross-legged, trying not to slip off a hot rock in the ceremonial area of the Temple of Ra. The sun above your head, sweat down your back, ink on your hand, and Pharaoh is entering. The crowd bows low. You bow too, but still peek upward to guard your paper, ink, and reed pen from rolling away. Pharaoh sits on a golden stone throne carved with images of a sacred bull, a lion, and something that looks like a smiling octopus. You don't ask. He raises his hand, signaling silence, and then he begins to speak. A prologue as long as a poem with no ending. Ra appeared in my dream last night. He sat upon a boat made of fire, carrying a vessel of amber-colored water, and spoke to me in the voice of a desert gecko. You're writing as if your hand no longer belongs to you. Each stroke turns into hieroglyphs. Ra must have a sun face with legs. Dream is an eye atop a bed. Gecko has no symbol. You note a small reptile that makes strange sounds, hoping the gods won't mind. No punctuation. Pharaoh continues. He speaks as though out of breath, but in fact, he's only halfway through the introduction. You're writing without breathing heavily, because every exhale makes the papyrus flutter and the ink smear. Pharaoh changes topic. The political situation on the eastern border shows that armies from the land of golden sand are approaching at the speed of... You swallow dryly, not from stress, but because your papyrus is almost out and he hasn't even finished a sentence. 3-layered brain mode. Your ears are listening. Your eyes dart proofreading as you write. Your hand moves so fast. The pen snaps right at the end of the word golden sand. You don't have a backup. You glance at your colleague. He pretends not to see. You understand. Unwritten rule of the job. Break your pen. Fix it yourself. You grab the bamboo toothpick tucked in your hair makeshift emergency pen. You write with something that feels like an ink-dipped fingernail. Not pretty, but better than being told you've diminished the majesty of divine language. When Pharaoh speaks to gods, you still have to write. Just as you reach line 87, Pharaoh pauses. You feel hope, but no. He lifts his head to the sky, raises his hand and declares, Ra is entering me. O great God, speak your will. No one dares to cough. You don't either. Your hand trembles, but you know from now on you're writing the words of the God sacred flawless and without choking. The God through Pharaoh's voice says, from tomorrow every newborn goat must be recorded with its name and its first bleat. You write. You don't ask why. You don't question whether you're the one responsible for recording the bleat. Sweat drops and ink drops. Pharaoh concludes. He nods. You bow low. Your hand feels like it just built a pyramid using ballpoint pens. You review the scroll. Total, 132 lines. 28 corrected symbols, 1 section stained by goat hair, and 1 final character, blurred by your sweat. You pray that sweat didn't land on the word God. You fold your hands, then quietly roll up the scroll. Writing ends. Exhaustion does not. You leave the shrine, feet dusty back, hunched like a reed struck by desert wind 3 times in a row. A child asks, Mister, what do you do? You smile faintly. I write. It asks, write what you answer everything, but without a single mistake. It stays silent. You keep walking, and you remember this afternoon. You'll have to recopy the entire scroll with straighter lines, because gods don't like slanted handwriting. You thought after Pharaoh's 120-minute punctuation-free podcast, you'd get a lunch break. Wrong. You're going on site, which means transcribing the entire offering ritual for the god Anubis. You barely have time to wipe your sweat before a priest pats your shoulder. The ritual begins. Grab your pen. Follow me. You nod. Your hands are still shaking. You grab a new bundle of papyrus, the kind that's a bit stiff, a bit coarse, and still bears goat teeth, marks from yesterday. You don't question it. Ritual location. The temple of Anubis. You're led into the inner sanctuary. High ceiling. Air thick with incense, sacred herbs, resin. And a scent you can't name. You guess slightly scorched goat meat with a touch of mummy ash. The air is as dense as the soup that gave you food poisoning last year and 4 days of stomach agony. You sit at your recording spot, a cracked stone slab beside the altar, just behind the pedestal holding the sacred bull's head, right beneath a window where a bird flies in and poops on your head. You breathe lightly, grab your reed pen, ready. The ritual begins, and you must write every move. The high priest appears, in hand a censer smoking like a bonfire, muttering a chant in ancient Egyptian mixed with a light cough. You must note every step priest walks 3 steps south, right hand holding censer, left hand pointing to the sky. You write fast, don't look away, because last time you glanced left while he was spinning, you missed it, and had to recopy the entire ceremony at midnight by moonlight with howling dogs. Smoke, smoke, and more smoke. The censer swings wide. Smoke billows thick and heavy. You're seated close, so you inhale the full combo of old wood, plus burnt goat hair, plus 10-year-old blessing incense. You cough softly. Immediately, a junior priest turns and glares. No coughing. Anubis is listening. You bite your tongue. Try breathing through your ears. Eyes sting. Nose numb. But your hand keeps writing priest spins. 7 times bows, touches forehead to ground, then sings. You write, then sings in all caps, because the voice was higher than a swallow and longer than a ballad in the wrong tempo. The things you can't really write. After fire dancing and throwing salt skyward, a dancer appears. Her costume, minimal in fabric, maximal in gold glued to skin. She performs a strange dance called 3-tiered serpent spin. You consider writing dancer spins like a snake, but you rethink it. Not divine enough, not accurate enough. You revise it to sacred movement embodying the mystical motions of the underworld. You mentally pat yourself god-tier diplomacy language. Even the gods get overwhelmed when the priest chants a 49-syllable mantra without breathing. Someone behind you collapses from smoke. You hear the thud clearly. You start to get up to help. But the priest says swiftly, "Keep writing. It's a sign of divine approval." You nod. Add to your notes, a devotee fell. Considered a good omen. You're not sure, but you don't argue with someone holding a sacred sword and a censer burning like New Year's fireworks. Ritual ends. Spell check begins. The ritual ends. The high priest reviews your notes. He scans, slowly, very slowly. You hold your breath. The eye of Horus drawn on his forehead flickers. Then he nods. Good. Not beautiful, but not wrong. You bow respectfully. Don't smile, because your lips are smeared with ink ash and possibly bird feather. The final gift. You are given a small date cake, a reward for accurate transcription. You hold it with both hands, moved as if receiving an Employee of the Month award, in a place where no one knows your name. You take a bite. There's a hard pit inside. You chip a tooth. You don't complain. You note silently tomorrow. Transcribe incense ritual for the god of dental protection. And so ends the afternoon. You survived, wrote everything, didn't faint, and still remember how to write Anubis without trembling. You thought you were done. Finished writing, ritual complete. The priest nodded. Thought you'd get a break. Thought wrong. Because just as you're packing up your scrolls, someone shoves a spell completion confirmation form into your hands with a cold statement. Take this to get stamped. Exactly 4 stamps. 1 wet seal. 3 dry seals. If not complete, the gods won't acknowledge it. You smile. Painfully. Because you know ancient Egyptian bureaucracy isn't ancient. It's painfully modern in the break your soul in slow motion kind of way. Spell check department, where scrolls go to die. You walk 145 steps northeast from the temple. That's where the spell check room is, right next to the storeroom for failed mummies' masks glued on wrong or feet wrapped backwards. You hold out your scroll. An old man with a red head-wrap, long beard, squinting eyes sits behind a table full of dry bones, unclear whether tools or snacks. He says nothing, just grabs a bird feather brush, dips it in ink, and starts striking lines. You panic. Did I write something wrong? He doesn't reply, just nods, then whispers. In line. 27. The word divine resonance leans slightly to the right. You. Yes, sir. He continues. Thoth likes his lines aligned. You nod, pull out the correction sheet. You head to the stamping room. Sign reads, official seal available from 10:00, 10:15 a.m. Late arrivals, please, pray. You look at the sundial the shadow points to. 10:14 a.m. You sprint in. Someone yells, no cutting. You gasp. I just need to file a sacred scroll. The stamper is a tall woman wearing yellow with eyes lined in black, like she's cosplaying the cat goddess Bastet. She looks at you, looks at your scroll, looks at the stamp, and asks the universal bureaucratic question, do you have approval from the pen stroke verification office? You not yet. Her step out, recue. You glance back 12 people, 1 camel, and 1 snoring elder waiting. You turn around, you bite your lip, and ask yourself, why do the gods insist on systems that actually exist? Pen stroke verification, like taking a sacred geometry exam. You're led into a room plastered with examples of failed calligraphy. A quote carved on the wall reads, beautiful script honors the gods. Slanted writing is blasphemy. Slightly off the god considers it. Way off the god strangles. The verifier is a young man with wooden glasses sounding like he's auditioning for the Egyptian Art Academy. He holds your transcript to inspect. Each stroke measures the spacing between moon and sacred falcon using a stone ruler. You sit like a criminal. Your sweat drips. The 3rd drop hits the page. He looks at you like you just peed on the altar of Ra. He nods, slightly. Approved. But next time, use deeper red ink for god names. Ra dislikes. Fading. Back to the stamp room, touching the holy wet seal. You return. The woman is still there. The line is longer. But you hold up your sheet. I have pen verification now. She looks. She flips the scroll. She pulls out a round stone engraved with a hawk head. Singing. The official sacred spell approval seal. Wet seal carved from Nile River stone during dry season. Only 3 in existence. And this is one of them. She presses it on your scroll. The thunk is as gentle as sacred music. Your hand trembles as you accept it. You've done it. You with no armor, no staff of power, only a shedding reed pen have survived the 5-layer bureaucracy of the oldest administrative system in human history. out of breath, but you can't show it. You exit the temple. In your hand, a scroll with 4 official stamps, 3 sweat stains, 1 dried tear, and 1 slightly crooked line which you ignore. You exhale. You say nothing, because if someone hears you exhaling with disrespect toward the gods, you might have to file a formal apology with Osiris. You finally get to breathe a little after the paperwork battle. Sweat's dry, ink's dry, throat's dry. You think now is just a light transcription. If only you hadn't thought that. The priest calls you back. Scribe, we need the official copy of today's afternoon prayer to the god Seth. Clear writing, red ink, not a single stroke wrong. You nod. You're confident. New scroll, new ink, new pen. You don't know. The tragedy began the moment you touched that pen. The danger of the word Seth. The name Seth is written with 3 key symbols. A knife representing strength. A beast's head symbolizing the half-god, half-demon form. A hook signifying control over storms, chaos, and ink scrolls. You write carefully. At the last character, your hand trembles slightly. Not much, just a bit, but enough for the hook to curve an extra stroke. Seth becomes Seth. Sneezes. You don't realize it. You gently blow the ink dry. You hand the copy over. The priest takes it, reads aloud, offering to the god. Seth sneezes. His voice echoes across the temple hall. All the priests go silent. Someone drops a golden bowl. Another chokes on ceremonial wine. A cat jumps onto the altar and walks away. You freeze. The priest turns to look at you, his eyes like he just discovered religious blasphemy in the form of a walking reed pen. You try to swallow. It doesn't go down. The semantic consequences. The priest murmurs. Seth sneezes. Are you suggesting the god of storms caught a cold? You stammer. No, it was a smudge. I didn't mean to. Another priest whispers. Is he implying Seth sneezed chaos into the cosmos? A third nods solemnly. The gods are angry. The wind is shifting. Look, the palm trees swaying. You know, it's too late. Fixing it is not easy. You kneel. You apologize. You offer to rewrite it immediately. The priest nods very slowly, as if pitying a creature about to be presented to Osiris for a grammar morality trial. You write the new copy. Your hand shakes like Sobek just poked you. You check each symbol using a handmade magnifier, aka squinting really hard. Finally, the new version is complete. No extra strokes, no sneezes. Only sweat and shame. Your new title. Even though the new version is accepted, even though the ritual proceeds, even though the god Seth doesn't appear in the sky and sneeze on you. From that day forward, people in the temple call you by a new name. He who doesn't know when to stop his pen, or if they're being friendly Seth the Sneeze. You accept it, quietly, and continue writing, because you are the scribe. You cannot be wrong, but sometimes one tiny stroke is enough to shake the divine universe. The afternoon passes like a snake crawling over hot sand. You've just finished nibbling on a dry cake, both hard and sandy, when the high priest walks over. One hand holding the copy you wrote this morning, the other tapping lightly on the stone table. You look up, just respectful enough, just scared enough. He holds the scroll up to the light, lifts his head toward the sky, inhales as if listening to divine judgment. Line 11, slightly slanted. Line 24, uneven. And line 37, The word God leans a little westward. You chuckle awkwardly. The priest doesn't chuckle back. He lays the scroll down and says a sentence that makes you want to jump into the Nile and self-destruct rewrite it. All of it. Straighter, neater, more sacred. Not a punishment, but a form of self-purification. You're not allowed to protest, not allowed to explain. You're only allowed to nod, very slightly, very painfully. You pull out a new papyrus scroll, a good one. No chewed corners, new ink, new pen, heart shattered. Repetition is no small thing you begin rewriting. First line perfectly straight. Second line as uniform as a Spartan march. Third line ink smudged. You erase, rewrite. You're no longer writing with your hand. You're writing with your will, your faith, and the 2% of life left after your spine gave up. From afar, the wind shifts. A cloud drifts by. You pray no feathers ash, or cats fall on your scroll. Body, mind, text. Hour 1, you transcribe 6 paragraphs. Hour 2, your back starts to go numb. Hour 3, you can't feel your butt anymore. Hour 4, you accidentally write Pharaoh is light as Pharaoh is a breakfast bun. You strike it out. Sweat drips down. You wipe. It smears. You rewrite. You hear a buzz near your ear. A cicada wind. Or the priest reading aloud how to sit straight while writing divine words. Floating in space. At the final line, your hand trembles, not from fear, but because your muscles are now disintegrating on their own. You pause, breathe, inhale through the one nostril still functional. You pick up the scroll, stroke it gently like petting a sacred leopard. You rise. Every step sounds like a groan from a previous life. You walk toward the priest's table, present the new version. The priest looks at you then, at the scroll. He flips the first page. Page 2. Page 3. You hear your heart beat like ceremonial drums. He turns another page. He nods. Beautiful. Aligned. Good. Send it to the divine archives. You nod gently. Say nothing. Because if you opened your mouth right now, you might cry like Isis mourning her husband for the 3rd time. The biggest lesson, you walk away empty-handed, heavy-hearted, but a truth echoes in your mind undeniable. In ancient Egypt, writing beautifully is still not enough. Rewriting that is devotion. You exhale. Your vision blurs, but your hand still grips the pen. 'Cause tomorrow, you might have to copy the prayer for the goddess Bastet, and that cat goddess absolutely despises ugly handwriting. Evening is falling. The orange sunlight hits the mud brick wall, casting streaks of light that look like giant letters scribbled halfway by a distracted god. You thought you'd get a break, but no. A little boy runs up, panting, hair messy, like an old kitchen rag, holding out a tiny clay tablet, the kind used for temporary notes, and says, "My mum had a weird dream. The priest said it has to be written down before Ra turns the lights off." You nod gently. You accept the tablet. You take your pen. You sigh, because you know you're about to write down things that history will never remember, but they are exactly what make people feel alive. Haragake. Dream, but one, a tired woman, a laughing cow, and a lotus that knows vengeance. You arrive at a small house west of the market where Granny Ranu lives with 3 chickens, 2 grandkids, and a crocodile tail fan fake. She greets you, holding a bowl of mung bean pudding. You politely decline. You sit, take out paper, hold your pen. She clears her throat, speaks very solemnly. I dreamed of a pink cow with gold teeth smiling at me. Then I climbed on it and flew across the Nile. Below were lotuses, but the lotuses had human faces, and the face was my mother-in-law's. You freeze. What did the lotus do? It spat water at me, then vanished. I think it means something. Please write it. You nod. You write. No further questions. Dream, Shuratu, the old man and the talking ink pot. You visit Mr. Patu, the oldest man in the village. He once claimed he saw the god Sobek appear as a giant toad when he was young. He tells you, I dreamed of your ink pot. It called my name. It said I wrote my wife's name wrong on our marriage scroll. Then it jumped on my face. Then I woke up. You write slowly. Not because you're afraid of mistakes, but because you don't want to break the seriousness of the dream. Dream, for 3, the kid who dreamed of being. Pharaoh, the boy next door, runs up to you, eyes gleaming. I dreamed I was king, wearing gold robes, a chicken hat, ordering cats to speak, and everyone had to listen to me sing. You nod. You write. At the end, you add children often dream of power as a reflection of the limitations they face in daily life. No one asked you to write that, but you did. A dream without meaning, but with a person. At the end of the day, you return home. You're washing your pen when someone taps gently on the stone table. A young woman, hair disheveled, tired posture. You don't know her. She sits down, exhales. I'm not sure this dream means anything. I just saw myself standing in the desert. No one else. Just breathing sounds, and a hand reaching out from nowhere. You write. She looks at you. If you don't write it down, I think I'll forget it. And I'm scared. If I forget it, no one will know I saw it. You pause. Not because you're out of paper, but because you realize she just said something you've always felt, but never named. Day's end. What you write may not be needed, but can't be lost. Night falls. Oil lamps flicker. You sit in a small corner. Beside you are 7 dream transcripts. None will be carved into temple walls. None will be read at official ceremonies. But you know every line is a piece of someone's life. Every dream is a tiny truth someone needed to be seen. And you, the scribe, don't just record the history of kings. You also preserve the humanity in a world full of gods. A long day nearly over. No more rituals, no more choking smoke. Just fading dreams and a pen that still has ink. Night has fallen. Cold air drifts into the corners of the temple. The black cat inside has curled up and gone to sleep. The oil lamps flicker softly as if they're breathing. You're still awake. The last scroll of the day isn't finished. No one is rushing you. No priest, no command, and no one needs this line to be done by any deadline, but you're still writing. No more orders, but the pen remains. You write the final line of dream number 8. An old man losing his memory said he dreamed of becoming young again, and finally saying sorry to someone he never dared to name. You're not sure which god handles things like that. There's no official symbol for apology or regret in the set of glyphs you were taught. You write in a softer script. You use lighter strokes, as if you yourself are sending a message to someone who vanished long ago. Iskike. Writing in silence, like a private form of prayer. Some days you write down executions. Some days you copy Pharaoh's laws filled with pride and declarations. But some nights like this, you just write something simple like she misses her son. Each time she blows out the lamp, she says his name, even though he's a soldier now and won't be coming back. You know no one will read this line again, but you still write it, not for orders, not for points, not for rewards, just because if you don't, it would be like it never existed. The God Thoth isn't always watching you. Legend says Thoth knows all that is written. He's the God of wisdom, of writing, of the magic that keeps the world recorded. But tonight, you feel like he isn't here. You're not writing for gods. You're writing for the people no one notices. The ones without names on stone. No statues. No carvings on temple walls. You write because you can't bear the idea that someone lived a whole life here and left behind not even a single line. Lines. No one will read you flip back through the old scroll. You see what you wrote. A 7-year-old girl said Goddess Bastard appeared and promised her cat wouldn't die. You smile. The market chief dreamed he was a pillar holding up the sky. Then it cracked, and everyone else survived. You shiver slightly. A nameless man, unknown age, couldn't remember his wife's name, only that he had forgotten too much. You breathe out, softly. You realize you're writing about missing, about dreams, about being human. Not about gods, not about rituals, just people, to people. One light stroke, like a whisper not to forget. At last, you write the smallest line of the day. No name, no dream, no story of great importance. Just this: there was a person who once lived here, who once loved someone, who once dreamed a tiny dream, and someone wrote it down so the world wouldn't forget. You put the pen down. There's no applause, no divine glow, no reward, but inside you, there's a deep stillness no God ever taught. You don't need to be remembered. You just need no one to be forgotten. The next morning, you've just managed to splash your face with cold water from a chipped jar when someone runs up scribe. There's a problem. You swallow. Eyes not fully open. Hand not holding a pen. But your heart goes thud. At the incident, a line in the ritual text is off. You arrive at the priest's meeting room. No one greets you. No one smiles. Your manuscript, the one already sealed 4 times, checked 3 times, recopied twice, lies on the stone table like an unburied mummy. The priest points to line 42. The line about the god Osiris. May the god resurrect the soul of the dead and guide them into the light. You look. You remember that line well. You wrote it correctly. But the copied version says, may the god resurrect the dead and guide their soul into the silence. One different word, one different stroke, a completely different meaning. Consequences that can't be explained away. The priest looks at you saying nothing. One of the funeral overseers sighs. They refuse to proceed with the burial. The family is afraid. The god won't guide the soul properly. You want to explain, but you know in ancient Egypt death is not the end. A tiny mistake in ritual is a soul's eternal misdirection. You ask to recheck your original draft. They let you. The ink is faint. The word light looks like silence when viewed at an angle. Maybe the ink dried too fast. Maybe the papyrus warped. Maybe, Your hand had already gone numb. You don't know anymore. All you know is that family refuses to have the body embalmed because they're afraid they'll bury a mistake. The truth, no one punishes you, no one hits you, no one expels you from the temple. The priest simply says, rewrite it, reread it, and remember it. You obey. You recopy the entire chant, very slowly, very carefully, and when you get to the word light, you pause, longer than usual. You feel like your hand is resting on someone's chest, and if you write it wrong again, they won't be able to go. The real punishment. That night, you sit alone, holding the old version, holding the new. You stare at the two words light and silence that look strangely alike, just one stroke apart, one slight curve. And you realize the gods don't need to punish you, because you'll carry the punishment yourself for the rest of your life just by knowing there might be a soul out there still waiting for you to write it right. And from that day on, you no longer write fast. You no longer see rewriting as a burden. You no longer call strange dreams nonsense, because now you know some words, if written wrong, are like a door that closes forever. No judgment is spoken, only a silent stroke that you'll carry for the rest of your writing life. Night falls like a soft veil draping over temple rooftops. Outside, the Nile breeze drifts in gently, carrying the scent of earth incense and a silence heavy as stone. You've turned off the main oil lamp. Just one small flame remains by your hand. Your reed pen has been set down for the who knows how manyth time today. The ink is dry, the paper is dry, but inside you, something hasn't settled. You find you can't sleep just yet, because there's one more line you haven't written. It's not part of any ritual. No one asked for it. It doesn't belong in any official copy. So what do you write? Not much, just one line. A tiny note scribbled in the corner of the scroll where no one would normally look. Today someone shared a dream. They couldn't recall it clearly, but they smiled as they told it. And I thought, that smile deserved a place on paper. You write one more short entry. I wrote a lot today. Names of gods, rituals, verses read aloud before 300 people. But what I remember most is an old woman who asked me if I'm gone, who will remember my dream. You look at that line. You don't erase it. You don't fix it. You leave the tiny tremble at the end of the stroke, because that was real. And sometimes real matters more than perfect. Words no one will ever know about you once thought you wrote to be recognized, to earn praise, so that someday someone would look at the document and say, what a brilliant scribe. But now you understand you write so the little things don't vanish like smoke. You write so the woman with the sad smile gets to stay, so the dream of a child doesn't slip into darkness, so the person no one remembers still has a name, even if only one short line in a scroll no one opens. So this is why you still hold the pen. Not because someone gave you an order, not because you fear Thoth, not because anyone demands it. You write because you can't bear the thought of something that once existed never being written down. A small joy, a faded name, a misspelled word, a glance between two people. All of it deserves a place, even if it's just on a folded piece of paper tucked in the corner of a desk. You fold the paper and blow out the lamp. There's no music, no drums. No one will read the words you just wrote aloud. Only moonlight slipping through a crack in the wall falling across your hand, a hand still stained with the ink of a full day of life. You know tomorrow you'll have to write again. But tonight, you've written what you truly wanted to write, what no one ordered, what no one graded, and that you quietly think might be the reason you've never quit this craft. A day ends in silence, but the words you wrote today, they're still there, falling asleep before you do, keeping watch so the little things aren't forgotten. Closing. The scribe without a name but present in every memory. Beautiful. You've now lived an entire day from the moment the first sunlight burned the dirt floor to the flickering of the last oil lamp, blinking like your eyelids. You've written. A lot. You've ached. For real. And you're still here. You're not a pharaoh. You don't have a statue. Your name isn't read in sacred rituals. No one brings you flowers on holy days, but without you, who would write down the lullaby a grandmother sang to her grandchild on a humid afternoon, who would note that fleeting glance between two people too shy to hold hands inside the temple, who would preserve those blurry, broken little dreams that for the dreamer meant an entire universe. You wrote them down. No one asked you to remember, and yet you did, because you are the one who quietly records the small things no one thinks about until they're gone. Pause. Now then, you can put your pen away, set the paper aside. No need to clean the ink, no need to double check the lines. Just take one breath and allow yourself to rest. Whoever you are, whatever age, whatever time, whatever moment you're hearing this, I just want you to know you are not an accidental ink blot in the scroll of the world. You are a full sentence, a complete stroke, a whole meaning. And if today you felt invisible, small, unwritten, well, I've written it down for you. Outro. Good night, silent scribe. You've walked with me through a long journey, from the morning holding a pen with hands not fully awake, to the late night writing lines no one will ever know you wrote. Maybe you're hearing this half asleep, or curled up in bed, not even sure how far into the story you've made it. Or maybe you're still awake, but your heart is quieter than before. Whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you carry, I just want you to know you are not a faded smudge on history's giant page. You are a punctuation mark, small but necessary, so that someone out there can read a story without missing a single thing. To be continued. Why being an ancient exorcist is so bad a day in the life of an ancient Egyptian exorcist, where cats are suspected of being your past life husband, and breakfast is a loaf full of sand, a profession that even ancient Egypt didn't like to talk about too much. You are an exorcist, not the kind with sunglasses and a laser gun. No. You carry incense, sacred oil, a pinch of salt, and if the budget allows an hourly rented goat, you're not ordained, not paid on time, and occasionally sued by the ghosts themselves. You get called when walls start whispering, when cats begin to speak, when a clay jar floats across the room and someone swears they heard Grandpa breathing. And of course, you don't have health insurance. Before we begin, do me a small favor. Like this video if you enjoy strange little stories like this, and leave a comment. What time are you listening to this? Are you in bed or sitting in a corner of the room, suspicious of that shadow that just moved? Even those spooky 3:33 a.m. comments, I see you. You are an exorcist in ancient Egypt. And this morning, someone needs you because their cat has started speaking in their ex-husband's voice. You open your eyes. It's still dark, but not the peaceful kind of dark. The kind with breathing sounds, not yours. Not the neighbor's cat you keep around to absorb bad vibes, but something whispering against the clay wall. You don't want to confirm it, because confirmation means you have to get up. You lie on a straw mat just thick enough not to feel like sleeping on gravel, but still thin enough for every historical backache of Egypt to reach you. The tunic you wore yesterday has a stain from sacred oil and a blood mark, hopefully, from the goat. The air smells like old incense smoke, spent ash, and the dampness of a spirit that refuses to leave. In the corner, near a tiny altar, there's a new scratch on the wall. You don't remember it being there yesterday, but you're not going to ask. Not this early in the day. You sit up. Your knees crack like the lid of an ancient relic unlocking. You exhale long, like someone who just survived a ritual you were only the assistant for. Outside, the sky isn't bright yet, but the neighbor's black rooster has crowed for the second time. Something nobody enjoys, except superstitious fortune tellers. You glance around the room, part sleeping area, part work storage. A bundle of half-burned incense, a bottle of sacred oil with a bent lid, a stack of papyrus charms you haven't finished copying, and a bronze knife used not to fight spirits, but to slice onions during rituals. Then you look toward the door. Someone standing there, silent, not knocking, not calling your name, just standing. And you know today's work is starting earlier than expected. You open the door. Standing before you is a woman around 70, thin, like a dry reed, clutching a Bastet cat statue, the kind sold in every market. But she's holding it like it's her only child. She doesn't speak right away, just looks at you like you're her last hope. "My house," she whispers. "There's something. You something. Moving, floating, talking, her no. It's laughing. No coffee, no hot water. You grab your exorcism kit, a cloth bag filled with powders, leaves, cords, and a wooden charm with a chipped corner. You wrap your scarf around your head, tuck the incense jar in your tunic to keep it from breaking, and slip on your sandals, one of which is still missing a strap. You keep forgetting to fix. Outside it's still early. The air is cool, but the damp kind of cool, not refreshing. You walk through narrow alleys lined with dry earth goat bleats echoing between straw roofs and the crash of a water jug or a soul jar. Hard to tell. You think about what the old woman said. It's laughing. You face screaming ghosts, crying ghosts, wailing spirits. But laughing. That's not good. Not good at all. You return after seeing the old woman off with a promise to visit her house after breakfast. If you're lucky, you'll get there before the sun is hot enough to make you forget you're alive. If not, you might show up in a condition that no spirit would want to follow. Because honestly, ghosts have standards too. You open your wooden food box. Inside a barley loaf, dry as the soul of a tax official. It was baked. You don't remember when. The surface is cracked all over. You take a bite. You hear a crack. Not from the bread. From your teeth. You chew slowly, very slowly. The only thing keeping you from full despair is a sip of flat, warm and sad beer. Ancient Egyptian beer has no fizz, no foam, nothing but fermented grain water and the memories of hundreds who drank it and still haven't recovered. You sit on your doorstep, bread in hand, beer at your feet. The sun hasn't fully risen yet, its first light beginning to slip through the straw roof. You sigh, not from fatigue, but from the kind of, I can't believe I'm still doing this job. Suddenly, you hear breathing, right next to you. You turn, no one's there, just a shadow shifting gently like someone just stepped out, or just stepped in. You stop eating, you look at the bread, you ask softly, am I being watched? No one answers. Good. Silence is a blessing, especially when you live near a cemetery and work in a profession. Villagers call by every name except your legal one. You resume breakfast, one more bite. This time you bite more carefully. You pull from your cloth bag a piece of dried cheese. It used to be soft, used to smell good. Now it's like someone tried to make an ice cube out of goat milk. You think, if I choke on cheese this morning, will anyone perform an exorcism for me? Then you chuckle. Probably shouldn't ask that, because the answer might be standing right behind you. The neighbor's cat jumps onto the window ledge. It stares at you, doesn't meow, doesn't blink, just stares. You stare back. Both of you hold eye contact, a quiet mental duel between a living human and a tree-climbing spirit. After a moment, the cat backs down. It hops off and disappears behind the clay wall. You take another sip of beer. It doesn't taste better, but at least you're still alive. Outside, the market is waking up. Shouting, arguing, pottery breaking. Someone yells, "Where's the exorcist?" My goat is speaking human. You sigh again, because you know this morning you're not just casting out spirits. You might have to exorcise someone's entire belief system. You stand, wrap the rest of the bread in cloth, then glance back at your room like a goodbye in case you don't return before sunset. You check your tools, enough incense, enough cords, charm still dry, good. Time to go to the old woman's house, where a cat statue is being suspected of being her dead husband. You're ready, at least theoretically. Emotionally, never. You step out of your house with the fragile belief that today will be fine. You're wrong. It's not even 8 a.m., and the sun is already slapping you in the face like an angry god, Ra, woken up too early. The air is dry hot and shimmers like a pond being boiled over charcoal. You pull your headscarf lower, not to block the sun, but to avoid being recognized. Being an exorcist isn't like being a baker or a vegetable vendor. No one calls you out to ask prices. They call you out to ask, do you know how to get a spirit out of a cow? And you really don't want to say yes. You walk past rows of thatched homes, their clay walls cracked like unfinished dreams. People are starting their day hauling water, carrying fish, swatting flies off baby faces. Some glance at you, no greetings, no smiles, just that look, the look of someone who once saw you standing in the night, chanting over an oil lamp and a very uncooperative goat. You step into the house. The air inside is thick, not because of incense or dust, but because it feels like someone just left or never did. The old woman is sitting in the center of the room, next to a low wooden table. On the table is the Bastet cat statue, something that until yesterday was just decoration, but is now being treated like it has its own divine bank account. She looks up at you, voice barely above a whisper. Since yesterday, it hasn't slept. You glance at the statue. Still stone. Still wide-eyed tail curled and dustless. You sit down, pull out some incense, a pre-written charm, and a bottle of sacred oil you prayed over for 3 nights straight, which means it probably works, but not enough for you to fully trust it. You ask, has anyone in the house ever offended the gods? The old woman blinks. My husband once called the god Seth, Mr. Tangled Hair. Does that count? You nod. It counts. It absolutely counts. You begin the ritual. Light the incense. Pour oil at the doorway. Place the charm at the base of the cat statue. You recite the first chant. Nothing happens. Second chant. The air gets colder. Even though it's 117 degrees Hawaii outside, you're halfway through the third line when the cat walks in. Not the statue, the real cat. Black fur, yellow eyes. A walk like the floor is a runway, and you're the uninvited guest. It circles you once. No meow, no growl, just steps. Then sits beside the statue and stares at you. You continue. The fourth chant, a plea to Ma'at for balance and order. A breeze begins to stir from the ceiling despite no open gaps. You're about to go on when the cat meows. It's not a normal meow. It's low, steady, and enunciated. You stop. The old woman gasps. You see it. It sounds just like my husband. You look at the cat. It tilts its head. No further sound. Just an expression, not feed me, but aren't you forgetting to apologize for what you did in a past life? You swallow. Continue the ritual. You tie a charm string gently around the statue's foot. Sprinkle salt in a circle, not the fancy kind, but the soul-repellent kind the fishmonger gave you with a good luck wink. You recite the closing part of the ritual, the section where the spirit is invited to depart and guided into the light. And then the statue cracks, just a little, a hairline fissure running from tail to shoulder. Like it. Side. The cat stands, circles once, then walks out of the room, softly like wind. You and the old woman exchange glances. She whispers, trembling, "It's never left the statue before." You don't know whether to feel relieved or more alarmed, but you stand, pack your incense, gather your charms, and wipe your forehead. Before you leave, the old woman presses a small cloth bag into your hand. Inside, 2 dried dates, a silver coin fake, and a cat claw for protection, she says. You nod, bow politely, and turn to go. You say nothing, because you're too busy listening to hear if the statue is still breathing. You step outside. The sun is blazing like a furnace, but at least there's still light. You glance back at the statue through the doorframe. It's still dustless. The dirt path to the old woman's house isn't long, but today it feels like a soft execution march done in silence. Dust rises with every step. Each grain feels like it came from the sunburnt edge of the desert. You wipe your sweat, then wipe again, because you used your incense-smeared hand. Now your forehead smells like frankincense. Good. The spirits might like that. People won't. Suddenly, you hear a goat, then a voice exorcist. My goat laughed last night. You don't turn around, not because you're heartless, but because today all you brought is a cat charm, a binding cord, and one promise. You're headed to the home of a woman who believes her late husband has possessed a cat statue. That's priority number one. The laughing goat. It can wait. The wind picks up, not the soft, cooling breeze you see in herbal oil ads. No, this wind carries sand dust and something that sounds like a faint moan from far away. You try not to listen, but your brain still translates it. Don't go there. You stop. Look around. No one. Just a clay jar rolling out from somewhere into the middle of the road. Empty. You nudge it aside with your foot. A child runs past holding bread, shouting. So Mom says, come to our house after lunch. The old mirror's groaning again. You smirk. Groaning mirrors are common. Winking mirrors. That's the real problem. You nod vaguely. After lunch, if you're still breathing. You continue on arriving at the narrow alley where the old woman lives. The house looks normal. Thatched roof, 2 water jars, and a cat statue sitting on the doorstep. You look closer. Black stone statue cat, sitting eyes wide open, tail wrapped around its paws. It's Bastet, but what chills you isn't the stare. It's the fact that it's dustless. In a street full of dust, in a desert full of sand, a stone statue without a single speck of dirt. Not good. You stand at the door, take a deep breath, and knock 3 times. From inside a voice calls out, "You're here, aren't you? It knew you'd come." You place your hand on the wooden charm hanging around your neck, partly to steady yourself, partly to muffle the sound of your heartbeat growing louder. It's about to begin, the ritual. Either you'll manage to cast out the spirit, or you'll become the next object in this house. You've just stepped out of the old woman's house, feeling a little lighter, and your bag a little lighter too. Sweat pours, as if all the gods have agreed to steam you alive in the city's heat. You tell yourself, it's done. Go home. Cold water. Sleep. Forget the talking cat. But on your second step, you freeze. A small pop comes from behind. Not loud, not earth-shattering. Just a soft thump, like a clay jar falling, or like someone wants you to think it was just a jar. You turn around. The old woman's door is still closed. No smoke, no screams. Just a thin crack running along the Bastet statue on the doorstep. That wasn't there earlier, you're sure. You're an exorcist, you notice things like that. You look at the statue. The statue looks at you. You're not sure if it's moved. You hope it hasn't. But your instinct, the kind only people in your line of work have, whispers, you're not done yet. You turn away, keep walking, faster, your heart pounding louder. The smell of incense still clings to your clothes, now mingled with sweat, and a growing dread blooming like a lotus in a sandstorm. You're about to turn into the alley toward home, when someone calls out, "Exorcist, exorcist." You turn. A young man, pale-faced, hands trembling like he's already halfway possessed, and who knows, maybe he is. "Please, come to my house." The water jar. It floated. You frown. Floated, who held it? No one. It floated by itself. You want to laugh, truly. You want to burst out laughing under this 117-degree sun, but you can't, because behind him in the sunlight, you see a black cat sitting in the middle of the road staring right at you. Ashkinti. You turn away. Not today. You've done one ritual. You've watched a cat speak. You were paid in dates and a claw. You go home. Shut the door. Sit down. Take off your sandals. Exhale like you've never exhaled before. You think it's really over. That evening, as the sky finally cools, you light a small flame. Brew a bit of sleepy herb tea, the kind the herb seller at the market calls spirit calming tea. You're about to close your eyes when you hear knocking. Once, twice, 3 times. Silence. You don't move. The knocking continues. Slow, clear, unhurried. The kind of knocking from someone who knows you're home and knows you're listening. You grab your charm necklace. Grip it tightly. You open the door. No one. Just a clay jar placed on your doorstep. No note. No message. Just a jar. Empty. You lean down to pick it up and realize it has no dust. You look around. No one. Just sand and the darkness starting to swallow rooftops. You step back inside, lock the door, and whisper, "Not today, not tonight." You glance at the jar one last time. Still dustless. You sit still on the mat, your back still damp with sweat, hands trembling slightly, and your head, unsure if it's heavy from the heat or from the things you probably shouldn't have seen today. Outside, the sun is sinking slowly below the horizon like a coal running out of fire. The wind rises. This time it's real wind, not a whisper from the other side. You exhale, slowly, deeply, and for the first time all day without a sigh of frustration. You didn't die, didn't get possessed, didn't get judged by a cat, which means you won. You take a damp cloth and wipe your face thick market fabric soaked in crude perfume. Doesn't smell great, but at least it doesn't smell like spirits. You check your gear bag. Charms all there, incense almost gone, sacred oil half full, or maybe your sweat dripped in. You're not sure, eh? Binding string completely used. Self-respect shredded. You light the oil lamp. A warm, flickering glow. Enough to light a corner of the room. Enough to show you the jar on the doorstep. Still there. You don't open the door. Instead, you lie down. No fresh mat. No pillow. No rearranging. You just lie there. Face up, staring at the cracked clay ceiling. You think maybe I should change jobs. Then continue. But to what? Brewing beer, growing onions, writing poems to the gods. No job is less terrifying than this, but no other job makes you feel like you brush up against the edge between real and unreal every day. And there's something addicting about that. You pull a cloth over your chest. Your body begins to let go. Every muscle, every breath shifting from tension to surrender. Outside the door, wind whistles through the cracks. You hear a cat's meow in the distance. You're not sure if it's a real cat or... But you don't care anymore. Not tonight. Tonight you did what you needed to do. You tried. You survived. You stared straight at fear and squinted, then walked away. You close your eyes, not because you're tired, but because you've earned it. And if there's a spirit lingering out there, you whisper to them, "Not today, not tonight. I just wash my face." You lie there, hand on your stomach, eyes on the ceiling. Not to admire it, your ceiling has nothing but fat spiders and smoke stains from that one time you forgot to ventilate during a failed ritual. You lie there to exist, to breathe, to hear the wind, to wait for your heartbeat to slow enough. So you stop thinking you lost 3 gods from sheer panic. No one taught you this job. There's no certificate from the Temple of Ra School of Exorcism. You learned by surviving your first mistake. That time it was a ritual in the last house by the market. You remember clearly there was a chicken, a cursed statue, and a homeowner who deeply believed the night wind was her ex-husband calling her home. You got one line of the chant wrong. Result, the house filled with smoke, the chicken had a meltdown, and you were thrown out with the words, "Don't come back unless you bring pie." You learn from that. You don't bring pie anymore. You bring patience. You turn to the side. Your pillow is your arm. Your blanket is a cloth so old every wash is a farewell to another thread. But tonight, it's warm. Tonight, you don't need more than that. Outside, the wind shifts again. You hear a soft clattering, maybe the water jar getting nudged by the wind. Maybe not. You smile. Your lips are dry, but the smile still happens. You think of the old woman and her cat. You're not sure you actually exorcised anything. Not sure if it was real, or just a collective hallucination from heat exhaustion and too much ash scent. But you know this. She slept better after you left. And sometimes, that's enough. You don't need to shapeshift. Don't need to scream ancient words. You just need to be there. Light incense, sit down, and make someone feel less alone for seeing something no one else believes. You close your eyes, for real this time. Not to pretend, not to calm yourself, but to release, to let go of everything. This world, ancient, hot, full of unexplainable things, will keep spinning. And you'll wake up again tomorrow, if the gods allow it. If no spirit decides to show up at 3 a.m. and ask, can you re-explain the 4th line of the chant? Sleep. No nightmares, no groaning, just breath. And a jar on the doorstep, silent, still dustless. But you don't dream about it anymore, because you've left it outside your mind. Tonight you didn't save the world. You didn't vanquish evil. You didn't fight like a warrior of light. You sat with a lonely person and helped them not fear the dark. And sometimes, that is the miracle. If you're awake at 2 a.m., eyes wide, heart twitching because of a weird sound you just heard, not sure if it was wind or something else, know this. You're not alone. You're not a farmer, not a spice merchant rowing the Nile. You are a gatekeeper, the gate of what others avoid mentioning, the gate of where souls pass but never return, the gate of bad dreams, of fear, hanging between breath and clay wall. Some call it a tomb. And tomorrow morning, you've been assigned the night shift. You're now the one guarding the gates of the underworld in ancient Egypt, where you work nights. And demons do overtime. The job sit beside a small oil lamp back against the statue of the god Anubis. Hold a wooden staff, not to strike spirits, but to tap 3 times if you see something move. That shouldn't. You have no co-workers, no alarms, just sounds, the kind others pretend not to hear. You are the tomb gatekeeper, guardian of where souls pass through. Alone, 1 lamp, and a door that must not open. I tickle. But before we step into the dark, do one small thing. Like this video if you've ever sighed at 3 a.m. without knowing why. And comment below. What time are you listening to this? Where are you in bed on a couch? I read them all. The ones with no tags, no replies. The ones that feel like they were sent from far away. Now then, breathe in and let me guide you into a night shift where the only thing worse than strange noises is absolute silence. You wake up not because the sun is rising and not because of birdsong, but because of the sound of stone shifting beneath the ground. A low sound like someone stirring inside a tomb. Not violent, just a click enough to split your dream in two and leave you unwilling to glue it back together. You open your eyes. The room is dim. The small oil lamp in the corner still flickers. The smell of smoke and damp stone mixes in the air like the night. Never really ended. You don't speak. There's no one to hear. You simply sit up slowly as if afraid of waking someone who doesn't belong to this world. You live in a small room right beside the burial chamber of 3 generations of pharaohs. Low ceiling, cracked clay walls, just enough space for one person to lie down and one ghost, if present, to stand guard above. You put on your robe, a thick, rough, earth-colored cloth, the kind they gave you with the warning, wear this on your shift. If anything touches your shoulder, don't turn around. Just say the name Anubis 3 times. You've never turned around, even though, a few times, you wanted to. Endia. You lower yourself, washing your face with the leftover water in a stone bowl. The water is cold. Cold in the way that numbs your hands but somehow clears your mind. You look at yourself in the surface of the water. No clear face, just a shadow. But enough to know you're still alive. And tonight, you're still on shift. You grab the staff hanging on the wall, sycamore wood carved with a jackal's head. No one ever told you what it does, but it's the only thing that makes you feel like you're keeping a promise. You sling on your wooden charm necklace, add more oil to the lamp. Each time you do, you mutter in your head, "Not tonight, please, not this night." You step out of your room. The tunnel ahead leads to a massive stone door, the beginning of the forbidden zone. You don't open it. You're not allowed. You just sit in front of it beside the statue of Anubis, back against the stone, eyes on the flame, and ears listening for sounds that shouldn't exist. Above you are millions of tons of earth and pyramid stone. Beneath you, something no one ever taught you how to name. You only know that if anyone crosses that stone door before the rituals, you'll be the first and the last to see them. You don't want that to happen. Not tonight. Not when you just dreamed of a door opening from the inside. You sit, staff across your lap, lamp by your side, back against the wall, heart resting on. The only thing you have the hope that nothing happens. Your shift begins, alone, with the sleepless insects, with echoes from beneath the earth, and with yourself in your quietest form. You are ready, at least, in appearance, spiritually to be determined. You haven't eaten. Actually, you forgot. When the sound of stone beneath the earth woke you, all you thought about was checking the door, checking the lamp, checking whether you were still the only one awake in this tomb complex tonight. But now, as you sit silently beside the stone platform, listening to the soft hiss of the oil lamp. You remember you're hungry. You pull out your stash of rations from the corner, a scrap of cloth wrapped hastily. Inside is a barley loaf, earth-toned grey, nearly as hard as a sun-dried brick. You break off a piece. The crack sounds like something snapping from an unfinished dream. You take a bite, dry, bland, not even close to good. And as you chew, you wonder, every night I eat this stuff, but spirits still cling to the doorway. Maybe ghosts hate dry food too. You chew slowly, not for flavor, but because you don't want the sound of your chewing to drown out the faint shifting noise behind your neck. Not sure if it's the wind, not sure if it's insects, not sure, or unwilling to be sure. You take a sip of water. It's been sitting in a leather pouch since morning, slightly warm, tastes like earth, and somehow tonight, a little salty. You lift your head and look around. No one. Of course, you're the only one here, just the wind, blowing in from the far side of the tomb, a place where wind shouldn't exist. You pull the small charm from your neck, touch it by reflex, not full faith, but you're not looking to test your luck either. You whisper Anubis, if this is a joke. Tonight I'm not in the mood. No reply. You resume your meal, gnawing the second piece. Harder. Feels like chewing on the memory of a life spent watching doors. Mazgum. Then you hear a soft knock. Not clear where it came from. Just one knock. Not two, not three. Just a single solitary sound echoing like it came from a crack deep inside the pyramid. You don't move. Your body frozen. Only your eyes shift, scanning each dark corner in front of you. Nothing. Nothing clear. Nothing. Alive. You put away the remaining bread. Place your hand on your staff, not to raise it, just to have it there, to remind yourself that you still have reflexes, and to let whatever is listening to your breathing know you're fully awake now. You think of your father who held this night shift before you. He once said ghosts aren't scary. What's scary is thinking you're alone and realizing you're not. You used to laugh at that. You don't anymore. The night isn't halfway over. You haven't had your meal, but dinner is done. Not because you're full, but because there's no appetite left. You don't quite remember when the footsteps started. All you know is you were sitting quietly eating your bread, chewing with a kind of philosophical despair, and then they appeared. Not the wind. Wind doesn't walk in rhythm. Not a person. People don't move that silently. No, it was the sound of dust shifting beneath invisible feet. 1, 2, stop. You freeze. In your mind, the familiar checklist starts playing the same one that kicks in any time something defies basic laws of physics. Could it be a rat? Maybe the black cat snuck back in. Or, I'm just too tired. Did I ever write a will? You turn your head very slowly. Nothing. Of course, you've done this job long enough to know it's what you can't see that you should worry about. You stand up. The oil lamp flickers, casting your shadow across the wall, long warped like you've just been pulled out of a dream that ended too soon. You take a few steps toward the stone hallway. No response. but a slight shift in the air, just cold enough to make you think 3 unwelcome words. Not. Quite. Right. You listen. Once again, the footsteps return. Slow. Even. About 4 breaths away. You don't see anything, but you feel its weight. Something is moving without gravity's permission, or morality's, or yours. You take a step back. The stone beneath your foot creaks ever so slightly, and that's when you realize you haven't been breathing for at least a minute. You inhale deep. Your chest tightens because the air is thick with damp smoke, and something like the scent of incense that burned out 3 days ago but still lingers. You decide to speak. Who? Is there a useless question? If it's a person, they would have answered. If it's a ghost, they don't need permission. And if it's a third thing you don't want to know? Silence, but not the empty kind. The kind that listens, that watches, that makes your back feel colder by the second. You draw your staff, not to fight, but to feel like you still control something in your life. The footsteps stop. You think maybe it left. Then you hear the sound of stone tapping like fingernails on a tomb. You don't turn around, not out of bravery, but because if you turn and see something crawling on the ceiling, you will scream loud enough to wake your ancestors. Asfoon. You sit down. Try to steady yourself. You tell yourself stay calm. I was trained for this. I have charms. I have experience. I have a stick. I don't have insurance, but that's a bit late to consider now. You pull out a small charm, the kind for souls that lose their way. You whisper the incantation. Not loudly, not as a prayer. Just like someone trying to soothe a migraine, with a hope as thin as thread. Ah. Suddenly, a sound comes from the stone door. A knock. Just one. Then silence. No one ever knocks from the inside, because behind that door, there's no one. Just sandstone and things that were sealed away. You don't know what to do. You only know this. From now until sunrise, you will not stand up. You will not open the door. You will not speak. You will not sneeze. You will sit here, calmly, quietly, and try to breathe evenly, even though your soul is ringing like a bronze bell dropped from the top of the pyramid. Because sometimes the only thing you can do is sit still, hold on to the last bit of light, and hope that whatever just walked past doesn't remember the way back. You sit still, not daring to move much because you know at a certain level of stillness every movement echoes. And the last thing you need right now is something responding to your sound. The oil lamp still burns, its flame weak as if unsure should I keep shining or go out and pretend I was never here. You add a bit more oil, your hand shaking just enough that you have to inhale twice before nearly spilling the bottle. Babi. Beyond the tomb door, everything is quiet, the kind of quiet that pulls, as if someone is standing on the other side of the stone wall waiting for you to slip to knock once more. You're not giving them the chance. The night isn't even halfway through. You glance at the sundial. No, you look at the sliver of moonlight slowly crawling across the stone floor. Based on that, you estimate you've got 3 more hours until morning shift. 3 hours. 3 hours in a cold stone hallway with a door that might knock back. You tell yourself, I survived the festival shift. I've faced a cat that could stare into souls. I've sat with a jar that knew how to moan. I'm going to survive this night. You say that, but your leg is still resting on your staff, just in case something starts slithering toward you, so you can swipe at it with the speed of a hypertensive turtle. You yawn, not from sleepiness, but because your nervous system needs a reset. Your body is used to not sleeping enough. You've lived through dozens of nights like this, each one long, each one dragging like frozen memories, thawing one crack at a time. Sometimes you think of the others, the ones who sat here before you, your father, an uncle, a cousin who lasted a week before switching to salted fish selling because fish don't moan at midnight. You remember what your father once said, gravekeeping isn't a job. It's a dialogue between silence and yourself, and you're only allowed to answer when it really matters. You understand that more than ever now, especially after almost replying to the first knock earlier tonight. A breeze drifts through, not strong, just enough to tip the lamp and make the charm on your necklace tap your chest. You're not scared, truly. You're more tired than afraid. The kind of tired that makes you think, if there's a ghost, then fine, come on out. We'll split the shift. One keeps watch, one tells stories. We'll share dates in the morning. Fair. You chuckle softly. The only sound you hear besides your breathing is another breath. You stop. Listen more carefully. Not wind, not mice, not a cat. Breath. Uneven. Not close, but not far. Ombaisna. You draw your charm. Grip your staff. Your hand is a little sweaty. You don't speak. You don't whisper. You just stare into the dark, holding your gaze firm like, if you look long enough, whatever it is will disappear. Nothing happens, which in truth is the scariest part. You know this well. In this line of work, when nothing is happening, it usually means something is waiting for you to make the first move. You sit there through the next hour, not moving, not thinking anything profound, just watching. Not because you want to, but because if no one keeps watch, who's the first to know when something that shouldn't step out starts dragging one foot? The later it gets, the more you realize you're not exactly normal. You rest your head on your staff, not asleep but not fully awake. That familiar state, half conscious, half ready to die, and you think. Only someone who sat in the belly of the earth hearing stone breathe truly knows what it feels like to be forgotten by the universe on a night too quiet. You run your fingers over the wooden charm around your neck, not because you believe, but because it's the only sound in the room you control. Everything else doesn't answer to you. You once tried another job. You were hired to carve tomb inscriptions, but after you accidentally wrote blessing as ignite and the tomb actually caught fire, you understood. Your life was meant for a profession where you can't afford mistakes, or if you make them quietly. A tiny bug crawls past your foot. You look at it slowly like you're eyeing a co-worker. Where are you going? Not scared. It pauses, looks at you, then moves on, as if to say, I've got things to do. So do you. You sigh. Fair enough. A light breeze brushes your left shoulder. You don't turn. Because you've learned rule number 3 of tomb duty. If you feel cold on one side, lean the other way. Don't ask why. You do. And nothing happens. At least not yet. Your eyes slowly adjust to the dark. You begin to notice each stone in this hallway has its own cracks. Some look like ancient script. Some look like faces with open mouths. You blink. Not faces, just lamplight hitting wrong. Or imagination. Or someone's memory. That isn't yours. You lean back against the wall, feeling the chill seep through your rough fabric. It's not the chill of water, it doesn't make you shiver. It makes you question reality. You think, why am I still doing this? Why haven't I quit? Why not apply for gatekeeper duty at a temple where there's light and sweet cakes on festival days? You don't have an answer. Just a thought that rises by reflex. If I'm not sitting here, who will? You once asked your father that. He smiled, pointed toward the tomb door, and said, just imagine one night that door opens, and no one's here. Whatever steps out will think, the world doesn't guard me anymore. You never asked another question after that. You look at the oil lamp. The flame still burns, still obedient, but dimmer like it too is questioning its decision to show up tonight. You pour in more oil, a small act, a quiet sound, but in this tomb it's the only reminder that you still control something. You listen, no footsteps, no moans. Just your own breathing steady and another breath occasionally blending with yours before vanishing. You don't run, you don't scream. You sit like part of the wall because you understand tomb keeping isn't about fighting. It's about presence, quiet, persistent, not to win, just not to lose too soon. The shift continues. The night isn't over, but you are still here. You haven't been called away. You haven't been replaced. You haven't been forgotten. You are still the gatekeeper of a world everyone fears, but everyone eventually enters. You don't know when the sky began to change, only that the flame in your oil lamp started to soften, less defiant, as if it had just received the message. It's okay. Morning's coming. You don't have to hold the darkness alone. You glance down the burial hallway. Everything is where it was. No one appeared. No doors opened. No second knock. And in that silence you realize you've spent the whole night with yourself. No magic charms. No assistant. No holy sword. Just one old staff, one dim flame, and the patience of someone who can't leave their post not because of duty, but because they refuse to let the world go unwatched. You blink for the first time since midnight. The stone walls are still cracked, still cold, but they don't feel threatening anymore, because when you sit long enough with fear, you start to see yourself inside it. You remember a night years ago when you were just the backup. That shift the lead keeper left halfway through saying they felt off. You, a skinny kid with hands shaking like papyrus leaves, sat right here, gripping the staff, eyes wide, and for the next 4 hours it was just you. No gods descended, no miracles happened, just one long night. And you didn't run. Since then, you've known gatekeeping isn't about doing something grand. Not about slaying evil, not about saving the universe. It's about sitting quietly so that if something tries to step out from where it shouldn't, at least it meets you first. And that is enough. Quietly. A light breeze brushes your cheek this time, real wind, dawn wind, carrying dew and the sound of a rooster far away. You smile, not out of pride, but because you're still here, not called, not dragged away, not swallowed by the dark. You stand, back aching, legs numb, clothes dusty. You shake yourself off like a towel left hanging all night. Then tap your staff 3 times against the floor, not to summon anything, but to remind yourself it's done. Another night, one more time. You turn walking out of the corridor. The first light of morning filters through the cracks above. Birdsong, life, voices of the living. You know the night will return. The door will close again. You'll sit back in your place. And you also know, not everyone understands what you do. Not everyone believes there's anything scary behind that door. But if one day they do believe, it may be too late to watch. You wash your face, remove the charm, sit on the edge of the house. In your hand is the leftover bread from last night. You take a bite, still dry, but this morning it tastes like survival. As the sun slowly rises, you know you're still here, and that is a victory. You're sitting on the stone step back against the wall, knees tucked as the morning breeze slips into your robe. The oil lamp beside you is still burning a thin flame, refusing to surrender to dawn. And you think, maybe you're like that flame. Not strong, not grand, but still burning. What happened last night? Not much, nothing clear. Nothing you could explain to someone ordinary. Just one footstep with no source. One door that didn't open. One chill without wind. Agum. One knock that never came again. And someone sitting still, holding back the silence. You used to imagine this job would have heroic moments. Flashes of light. Flying charms. Screaming demons. You standing like a statue of a god. But no. In reality, you sit. You eat cold bread. You stay calm. You survive. Quietly, like someone who never asked for credit. A black cat jumps across the path, looks back at you, then vanishes into sunlight. You think, good. Today's not a talking cat day. You dust off your robe. The sand falls like the last breath of a forgotten dream. You're not braver than others. You've just stayed longer. Others hear strange sounds and run. You hear them and keep listening. Not out of curiosity, but because you're the gatekeeper. Not to fight, just to be there when something happens or doesn't. You remember your first solo shift. You were 17. The staff was still shiny. The charms didn't yet smell of smoke. You were so scared you bit holes into your robe. And the next morning you cried because you were still alive. Now you don't cry. You just smile, tired, dry, but warm. The sun rises like a quiet blessing from Ra with a whisper, well done. But remember, tonight is yours again. You know, you're not finished. You never are. As long as you return to that place, the world still has someone listening. You step inside, rest your staff, hang your charm, Remove your scarf, sit on the cool floor, and for the first time all day you exhale with your whole body. Not like task completed, but like I'm still here and nothing else got out. You bite into the last piece of yesterday's bread, still not tasty, still dry, but now it tastes like a survivor's breakfast. The taste of silence overcoming panic, eyes that never left the dark, and a quiet belief that sometimes just staying still is a kind of magic. Aniwiti. You look toward the door. Sunlight shines on the jackal god statue. Your collar is soaked in sweat, but your heart is warm. No one knows what you did all night. No medals await. But you know, if one day that door really opens, at least it had to meet your eyes first. You lie down on the cool floor, cloth over your chest, hand resting where your heart still beats steady even after a night no one should endure alone. You close your eyes, not to escape, not to hide, but to sleep like someone who held the silence safe through an entire night no one saw. The day begins, not with trumpet blasts but with a single blink from the earth itself. No bird song, no footsteps swapping shifts, just light quiet like the final answer to a dream stretched too long. Try again. You push yourself up, eyes barely open but enough to see your hand, and the wall still standing, the door still closed, nothing left, nothing released. You smooth your robe brush sand from your charm and breathe again. This breath carries no exhaustion, only gratitude. Gratitude that you're still here. Still, you're not shattered, not distorted, not dissolved into some other dream. Still you, the one who stayed all night, the one who didn't run, the one who never asked to be seen but stayed anyway. And you think, as the morning rises, you know you're still here, and that is a victory. Outro. The gatekeeper's good night. Wish you've walked through a long night with me. No red alerts, no demons leaping from shadows, no heroes, just one person sitting still, holding a silence that didn't break, holding the door that didn't open, holding breath while everything around made no promises to be kind. Maybe you're hearing this as your eyes drift shut, or still awake lying sideways hand over chest, or maybe you don't even remember what part you reached. That's okay. You don't need to finish. You don't need to understand. You just need to know you weren't alone tonight. Some jobs are unseen. Some people just sit there between light and dark on a thread-thin edge with no one remembering their name. But they're there. Not for medals, not for applause. Just because if they ever left, whatever's behind the door might not stay still. And maybe you're doing the same. In some quiet way, you're guarding a gate too, of your mind, of your feelings, of things you've been through but haven't named yet. And if you're doing that even silently at 2 a.m., I just want to say